Welcome to International Love Story, podcast about intercultural relationships. My name is Christina, and in today's podcast episode, I'm going to welcome Melanie. Melanie is from Germany, her husband Esmat is from Iran, and they're living together in Germany. In this podcast episode, obviously, we're going to learn more about them. We get to know how they got to know each other, more about their love story. But a big part is also going to be especially how Melanie handles hate comments and racist comments she gets online. She is quite open-minded with the relationship they're having. Also, she took his name last year, so when they got married, her last name is now Habibi. And for that reason, for example, it was difficult for them to find an apartment, which is quite sad, to be honest, obviously. And I had to pull myself together while having this conversation that I'm not getting angry. Unfortunately, this is the reality they have to deal with, but she's going to share a few very, very valuable tips on how she handled it. In my opinion, she found a great way to handle all of this. And with this being said, let's just dive directly into this conversation. Your partner is leaving, and then what do? You're alone.
There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong opinion.
My last message would be really don't underestimate culture shock. It comes in many different shapes and sizes. And really, I think having a community like this one, for example, is so important. To listen to other people's stories, to see what they're going through, because you're not alone, and whatever you are going through, maybe someone else is also going through.
Welcome, Melanie. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you're doing good.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that I'm here and you invited me.
So yeah, let's just go ahead. Let's just dive directly into that. Who are you? What are you doing? Tell us all about you.
Okay, my name is Melanie. I'm 31 years old and I'm working as a social worker for the youth office. And I'm working with refugees underage. And I love to do that. And that's also the reason why I met my husband. So in 2015, when the whole refugee crisis started, he came to Germany and I was working with him. And so coincidentally, we met. Mm-hmm. And now we're married.
So your husband, obviously, he is not German. He's from Iran. He came here in 2015, you said. He moved to Germany, right? So how was that like the first time you met each other? Did you feel like there was a connection or did it build up over the time? I would like to learn a little bit more about the first time you guys met.
Yeah, as I said, we met through my work. And there he was just one of many refugees that I knew at that time. But for him, and that's what he said, he saw me for the first time and he thought, I have never seen a more beautiful woman. And yeah, that's what he told me. And he was in love with me from the very first sight.
Obviously, due to that due to your work, you communicated, I guess, on a regular basis, right? And then slowly but little, you fell for him as well.
Yeah. After we finished our work relationship, he got my phone number and he texted me. And he asked if we could meet. And so I invited him to a meeting of my friends. We met at a river and we make a campfire. And he was there, so for the first time. And we just made a little walk together. And that was the time when he told me that he was in love with me. And I thought that was really funny. I was not expecting that. And I told him, yeah, but that will not work. I'm not looking for a relationship right now, but we can be friends. And yeah, that's how our friendship started. That was about 2 years after we first met. And yeah, then our friendship got really closer and closer. And somehow we became friends with benefits. And then I got pregnant. And for me, it was the best time, the best day of my life, the happiest day of my life, because I always wanted a child. Before that, like weeks before, we always talked about, yeah, maybe we should try it with a relationship, because, you know, he was in love with me and I knew that, and I was not sure, yeah, could he be the right one for me? I don't know. Is he my type? And then we had this pregnancy test, and I said, okay, that's a sign. We have to try it with a relationship. We don't stress, but we try it. And then we tried, and since then we're as happy as we were never before. So
if you could describe your husband a little bit, like what was it that made you jump after all into the relationship? Because he seems to be a very, very lovely person of what I see and what I hear, because you're also quite open about your relationship on Instagram especially.
He's very kind, and he's listening always, and we can talk about anything. So we don't have secrets, and I think that is really important. And so we can trust each other really deeply. I think that's really important and makes our relationship so beautiful.
And how long did it take in total for you to learn that? Because as I understood, like the day you learned that you were pregnant, that was also the day where you were like, okay, let's just try it out. Let's see where this is going to lead. But as I also understand is that, I mean, there was still a chance that obviously this can't or this could not work out. Was there a special moment where you realized, okay, that's it, that's him, we're going to build a future together, if you think back? Or was that something that built up during the years?
There was a special moment when I realized I fell in love with him. So there was no pressure for me. I really said, okay, when it's not working, we just finish the relationship and we just stay friends, and that's okay for me. And it took really the whole pregnancy. So it was like, I think it was the 8th month when this moment came, and I thought, okay, I really love him. It just came to my mind. I looked at him and I thought, okay, I really love him. I can't imagine my life without him. And I told him, and his reaction was the best, because he said, I know. I already know. I felt that.
Yeah, as I said, he seems to be like a very also sensitive person, which I think, like, I mean, we get back to that later as well. There are a lot of cliches and stereotypes you unfortunately have to deal with as well. That's gonna be a big part or a big topic we're going to talk about later. But I just think it's so lovely that he knew the whole time that you fell for him as well, that he was just waiting for you to tell him, let's say officially, so that you were both on the same page, and that from there on, I guess, you were just able to build an even stronger relationship once that was out, and once you were clear about your feelings as well, that you both realized, okay, we're moving into the same direction from now on. As far as I understood, so you met in 2015. You basically had a friendship with benefits 2 years later, so that was around about 2017. And when did you give birth? When was that?
2020.
2020. So you knew each other for quite a while already. Okay.
Yes.
And your life obviously changed again from that moment on. How did that feel?
Great. So really, we were so happy, and we still are. I also had that feeling that I arrived in life. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. So you had the feeling that you are exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, right.
And for him, because I can only imagine 2015 when he moved from, or when he had to basically, when he was forced to move, let's say it like that, because I don't think that's a choice he made. If he could have stayed, I guess he would have stayed in Iran. But at the time between moving to Germany, which was 2015, and then you giving birth, which was 2020, I mean, there are 5 years in between. Do you know what challenges he had to adjust to? Because the moment he moved to Germany, obviously, his life was turned upside down as well. Most probably he had to learn German. I'm not sure if he learned before already. A new culture, all of this. And then he met you, he fell in love. So do you know how it felt like for him, especially the first few years?
Yeah, of course it was difficult first learning German because he also can't speak English, so there was no way of communicating with the Germans. So he had to learn German really fast. And now he speaks very well, so we don't have any problems. And also, Iran is a country that's very strict with religion and with rules. I also have been there 2 times, so I know what they're speaking about. And there are many things when you see them in Germany and you come from Iran, you can't believe what's happening here. He told me in the first camp there was a man who was looking for everybody, and he told him, I don't know, I think they were talking about the weekend and what they were doing on the weekend, and the man said, I was with my girlfriend and our 2 kids. And my husband said, how can you have a girlfriend and 2 kids? How can you have kids when you're not married? Because he couldn't believe that, because in Iran, that's unbelievable. That's not allowed. You can't do it. Even, if a woman gets pregnant, when she's not married, they will marry before the child is here. So he had to learn quite a lot about how life can be without these strict rules. But he's very accepting. He's thinking if this is right and maybe the things he knows could be wrong. And he's very logical. And so that never was a problem.
Culture-wise, as you've mentioned, it's quite different, especially when it comes to family and being married and all of this. So he also questioned his own background, and he tried to figure out his kind of new identity, as far as I understood, right?
Right.
To figure out, okay, how do I integrate in a way that I match both cultures and without having any difficulties on the long run. Because I can imagine that must have been a huge culture shock for him. When suddenly living in Germany, learning a new language, meeting new people, new habits, completely different culture. I mean, we're Germans. We are in many ways special when it comes to specific things, such as organization, bureaucracy, and all of that. But it's so nice to hear that he was able to adapt quite fast, as far as I understand as well.
Yeah, he was.
Did he move alone, may I ask? Or was his family able to were they all traveling together, or?
No, he was alone. His whole family is still in Iran.
Okay. So right now you have family in Iran and you have family in Germany. And how do you make that work? Like combining two families and kind of being in the middle as well?
I think for me, it's quite easy because, when you have a husband or a boyfriend who's also from Germany and there are 2 families, you have always you have to decide always where you want to go on the holidays, And so when you just have one family here, it's clear, we spend the holidays with my family. So for me, it's quite easy. For him, it's hard, of course, but we try to visit his family as often as we can. But since the situation got worse in Iran last year, we are not able to go there. I don't know how long, maybe for a few years. That's really sad. So the only way we can communicate is we call them and we make video chats. But it's mostly him because I can't talk to them. I try to learn Farsi a little bit, but I can't really talk with them. I need him as a translator. So it's mostly him.
The situation in Iran right now, you said since last year, it got worse. As far as I remember, there are quite often huge protests. As far as I know, internet connection, like they don't have internet for several days or even several weeks. How, may I ask, I mean, obviously you don't have to answer this question, but what impact does it have on you and especially him, knowing that his family is still there and he can't talk to them as often as he might want to because there are several circumstances that are having an influence on the communication, for example?
I think when you don't attend the protests, it's quite safe for you. When you stay calm, you sit at home, you wear your hijab, then it's okay. So his family tries to do nothing because there are not Iranians. There are also refugees there. They're from Afghanistan, and there's always this danger behind them, or if we do something that is wrong for the government, maybe they send us back to Afghanistan. So they really sit still and don't do anything. And I think my husband is not really afraid that something will happen to them. But the point is, when you speak up against the government, you're really in danger. And that's what I did because I thought, and I still think it's the right thing to do. Because when those who are involved and have family in Iran, when those don't speak up and don't help, who will help? That's why I shared a lot about the protests and about the government when the protests begin. And that's also the reason why it's dangerous for us to go there, because the government is really checking, like, what do you do online before you can enter the country? And that could bring me to prison.
And that's the reason why you decided, one of the reasons, obviously the protests as well, that you're not going to fly to Iran anytime soon within the next few years until things hopefully will develop into the right direction.
Right.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot, I can imagine. Is it affecting your relationship in a way as well, may I ask? Or are you able to separate it? And because, for example, as you know, like I'm married to an Argentinian, but we're living in Germany. He has to deal with homesickness. Argentinians are close to their families in general. Like, family is very, very, very important. But we can travel kind of whenever we want, even though the situation in Argentina is not the best at the moment. But that's more, based on the political and economic situation right now. But we could travel anytime we want, kind of, So I know I can take him when things are like when he's feeling homesick or when something happens within his family, and we can just fly over. And that would be our solution to solve this issue in that very moment if it comes up. How do you deal with that? Like, communication-wise and all of this? Is there any advice you can give?
He's not mad at me or something like that because I'm the reason we can't go there. He understands what I did and why I think it's the right thing to do. And if he gets really, really homesick and it's really bad, he could go alone. That would be not that dangerous for him, but he doesn't want to go without us. So, yeah, but that would be an option. He could do this. I wouldn't say, no, you have to stay. So he could do that.
So because he's not vocal about the situation online, that he wouldn't be at risk.
Yeah.
Okay. So for you, it's a different story, though, because you are publicly vocal about it. Speaking about that, like, what do you do exactly to bring more attention to that topic?
I shared a lot of opinions. There were a lot of videos online about the protests, and I always shared when I thought that's important for the people to know, because that's also what the women in Iran wanted. They wanted us to give them a voice and to give them a place where they could show that, because the internet in Iran was gone or really bad. So they needed women from other countries to help them to share their stories. So that was what I did. I shared the stories, and I also made a few reels about the situation in Iran. And yeah, they are still on my account. So,
Yeah, definitely. I'll check. I link everything in the side notes of the podcast as well as in the description of the YouTube video. And by doing this, by sharing your story, by sharing what's going on in Iran, by being vocal and present in general, you also, you bring a lot of attention, but not always positive. You don't always get positive feedback, let's phrase it like that. Because as mentioned in the beginning, this is also a big topic I would like to talk about, because it's important that we address that. And you found, as I think, a great way to do so. And as not being shy to talk about it at all, and sharing your personal experience as well. So again, you do get a lot of negative feedback as well. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that. What was your experience when bringing that topic online and when sharing your story online?
There are always a lot of comments that say, oh, you're a shame for the Germans, and look for a German guy. That will not work. He will leave you, or he's just with you because he wants the German passport. I think that's comments that every multicultural couple knows. And when I read them, they don't affect me. So I know that what I'm doing is right. I love him, and our relationship never... I know that there's not this background or this intention that he just wants the German passport and then he will leave me. So, yeah, I know him. I knew him before. We were friends from a long time before. And as I said, we talk about everything, and I'm so sure about this relationship that they can't come near me. These comments. There are some comments that hurt, but not when it comes to our relationship, because I'm so sure about that. Yeah, nobody can bring me doubts here.
Yeah, because as mentioned, you're sharing a lot about what type of comments you get as well on social media. And honestly, the first time I saw your videos, and I basically scrolled through all of them, I couldn't believe what I was reading, because I know that's unfortunately that there are people that are not very open-minded to different cultures, to different habits, that are very small-minded, I think is the right word for that. but seeing what you guys have to deal with, and also with very personal messages as well, like trying to attack you directly, I was heartbroken, to be honest. We sometimes get sentences or messages like that. Obviously, if there's a reel, for example, Nacho is trying to get his German citizenship at the moment. And regarding to that, I also got comments like, he shouldn't be German or stuff like that. But this is not affecting me at all because it just happens, I don't know, 3 times a year or something like that. Or stuff like, hey, you should marry a German guy instead of someone from abroad and things like that. They're not affecting me. But I'm not dealing with that on a regular basis. But you do. And I do think the way you are addressing that is amazing. So I do have a lot of respect for you doing that. I'm just wondering, like, if there's an advice, if there's something you would like to share towards everyone who has to maybe deal with similar attacks. Like, let's phrase it as it is, because or stupidness, or I don't know. I I have several words for that I don't want to mention here in the podcast right now. But how do you deal with that? How did you learn to handle that?
You should be sure about everything you post. So if you're not sure about something, don't post it. So because if you show your opinion in the internet, there will always be people who hate your opinion, and they write their hate in your comments. And if you're not so 100% sure about it, you get doubts and the comments will hurt you. So maybe that's one of my advices. So know who you are and be proud. And just when you're feeling comfortable with everything you are, then share it. Because then the comments can't affect you.
I guess you had to deal with stereotypes, for example, even before you guys met, because due to your work as well. So maybe that helped a lot as well, that you were aware of that from the beginning. You start working in that field. I'm just wondering, like, what is it that people think it's fine to stereotype? What is it that people think it's a good idea to send hate comments like that? What is it that people try to, I mean, those are my thoughts, try to put you into a specific shelf, as you would say in German. And I guess all those are questions that were going through your mind as well. But again, you found a way to address it and to go public about it, even by sharing your experience as well. What is the current situation? Because as mentioned, you found a great way to deal with that. And is it affecting your husband in any way, or is he able to ignore it as well? Because it's mostly against his cultural background.
Yeah, but it's mostly my account, and he doesn't want to do anything with this comments. He watches my videos, and when I force him, he makes videos with me. And he's always one of the first who watches my stories. But yeah, I think he doesn't even read the comments. He doesn't want to have to do anything with that. We're talking about it when I get these comments, and I have to think about it. Then I tell him, hey, look, there's this comment, and it doesn't get out of my mind. I have to think about it all day long. And then we're talking about it, and he says, hey, it's just a comment. And if you look the people up that comment these things, it's mostly accounts. They don't have a profile pic, and they don't have any reels or posts at their page. So I think mostly these are people who are not happy with their own lives, and they find joy in spreading hate in the internet. The reason I find why they are doing this. So yeah. maybe I feel sad for them when they comment stuff like that, because I know it's not my fault. I'm really happy with my life, and when they're not, I'm sad for them.
Yeah, that's a good way to handle it. And we have a name for that in German, which is Trolle. So like little dwarfs, basically, I think is the translation for that, more or less. That are creating those type of accounts to spread hate anonymously online. So you're making a difference between online world and real world, but you do experience stereotypes as well, unfortunately, in the real world, as far as I understood. Like, for example, when it comes to searching for an apartment because you took over the last name of your husband. So your last name is Habibi now, and that's not a German last name. Do you have a few examples on how this is affecting you? Like, what type of comments you are getting in, let's say, in the real life?
I think I'm lucky because I'm really proud of that name. I love this name. It's one of the most beautiful names in the world for me. So when I talk to anybody, to somebody, and I mention my name, I'm showing that I'm proud. And I think that's the reason why I get really, really less comments on that, or really, really less bad reactions. But sometimes when it's writing, for example, writing emails, I do that a lot in my work, for example. That could be that there are bad responses, like, oh yeah, we don't want any people from foreign countries in our house or in our flat. That could be, but really the most responses are positive. And I think that depends on my attitude, that I show that I'm proud of this name. Yeah, the funniest thing that I get is when I talk to Arabs on the phone, because that's part of my job. And, I say Habibi, and they always think I say Habibi to them, because that's a thing you say when you talk to an Arab, and they always respond, oh, Habibi, and yeah, that's funny.
What does it mean, Habibi? What would be the translation for that?
My friend or my darling.
Yeah, that's lovely. I
love
that. So you are very, very, like, as mentioned, proud of your last name, of your relationship, of your little family. And it was never even a deal within your inner circle as well, like family, friends, they were very, very acceptant from day one, I guess.
Yeah. Most of our friends have also this kind of relationship. My friends that I also knew before, most of them also have a boyfriend from Afghanistan or from Iran. So we stayed in the same circle. And also one of the closest friends I have here in our city, because we moved in 2019. We moved from my hometown in this new city, and we had to make new friends. And one of the closest friends I have here, we met her at an event for multilingual children, because we were searching for tips how my husband can talk Farsi with our daughter. And she was also searching for that, because her husband is also from Afghanistan. And yeah, so, you find the people, you attract the people that are right for you. And so I never have any problems in my circle of friends, because they're all the same. And also my family, they knew him before. They knew him when we were friends. And yeah, I think they loved him from the very first minute. And so, yeah.
So he got to know a few of your friends the first time as well at the campfire. And I guess from there on, it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Already integrated in your inner circle. And talking about, like, your daughter and learning, I guess she's learning 2 languages, like more or less. How does that work?
I wish she would. But my husband can't talk Farsi with her. That was also the reason why we went to this event. And there they said, you can't force yourself to talk a certain language with your child. You can just talk the language that comes out of you like nothing. Like you don't have to put pressure on yourself. For example, in my case, I just can speak Bavarian with my daughter because it's what I knew. That's my childhood. When I hear this Bavarian dialect, that's the only thing I can talk to the children. The only way. Also, other children. They here in the city, the Bavarian dialect is not as spread it as my home country. Most of the people just speak normal German. But also when I meet little kids here, I talk the deepest Bavarian dialect with them because it's, I don't know, that's my childhood language and I just can talk this. And that's why my daughter just hears Bavarian from me. And with my husband, it's a little bit more difficult. And we don't know why. Maybe there's a trauma behind that. I don't know. Maybe because he had to leave his country. He just speaks German to her. So he really wants her to learn Farsi. And I also want her to learn Farsi. So that's why I also attend a course to learn Farsi myself so I can help him. But at that event we went to, they said, you can't help him. It has to be a normal thing for him, a natural thing. And he can't force it. If he doesn't speak to her Farsi, he doesn't speak to her Farsi. That's everything.
And you can't tell why it is what it is. And you mentioned it could be a trauma from years ago that's affecting him right now. It's something I did not think about at all, that this is a challenge or it could be a challenge when raising a multicultural family. But as I understand, it's common. It's common in general when blending a multicultural family, or is it especially when country like Iran, where they had to leave the country, trying to adapt to a new country and then raising a multicultural family?
No, as far as I know, it's a challenge for most of the families when the part with the other language also speaks the language from the country, because his German is really good. I think he's afraid when he speaks Farsi with his daughter in public that people say, oh, why can't he speak German? Why is he not integrated? Things like that. He's afraid of this. And this also blocks him speaking Farsi with her because he thinks, the people want me to talk German. So, yeah.
Yeah, that could be definitely. That's so sad to think about that, because that is his culture, like he's somehow part of his DNA as well, the way he was raised. And I'm so sorry to hear that. You have to deal with certain challenges that are no topic at all for other couples. But I understand that you found a very, very good way to figure it out, to deal with it, and to push away the outside noise, let's say like this. I guess you know what I mean by that. And that you were able to grow stronger during the past few years. What are your future plans? Like, where do you guys see each other in the next few years?
the biggest plan is that we want to travel the world. We want to do this next year. Because in Germany you have this, parental leave, I think you could say. And you have 3 years, and I also took 2 years when my daughter was a baby, so I have 1 year left, and I can take it whenever I want before she's 7, I think. And we want to take this year, both of us, and then travel the world. I want to create income online, because I also have online business as happiness trainer. And I want to increase that, and so we can get money online also when we travel. And yeah, that's our plan for next year. We want to see Asia, all of Asia. That's the part of the world that is most interesting for us. I don't know, because I think because Iran is there, and the countries near Iran are the most interesting ones for us. And yeah, that's the plan. So we made a journey with a camper as our wedding, our honeymoon. And because that was the plan at first, so we buy a camper and then we travel the world. And we wanted to try it first. So we borrowed this camper for 3 weeks, and we were going through Europe. And yeah, we saw that's not the kind of travel we want. So because it's not this dreamy life you see online, because it's really hard to find a place where you can stand with your camper and where you can refill your water and clean your toilet and things like that. And when it's that hard in Europe, how can you do that in Asia? They don't have camping sites like we have here in Europe. So we said the camper is not the right way to travel through Asia. Yeah, and now we're thinking of maybe we take our car and we book Airbnbs and we go from Airbnb to Airbnb, or maybe we fly.
And for 1 year, you said, most probably.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, we did that Europe thing for 1.5 years in a camper. Yeah, but I feel you. We were just like 2, and imagining having a kid with us, that would have been very interesting, let's say like this. And just a few square meters. Yeah, you get to know each other in a different way, definitely. And I had my needs, Naja had his needs. And then imagining having a kid with us, you have to focus on all the time and making sure that you park at a safe spot so nothing can happen. Food-wise, having a routine and all of this, because we did not have a routine for 1.5 years at all. I think that's a cool idea, to be honest, and I can't wait to see where the next few months and years are going to lead you guys. And I just also realized that we kind of skipped a whole chapter of your life as well. The chapter of where you guys got married. And I don't know, we've talked about that you took over his name, but now I'm also curious, before we come to an end, of how your wedding was.
So our official wedding, the one where you go to the official office, I don't know the English term for it, that was last year. And we planned it should be the same date like when we married this year, with this pre-wedding. I think it's the right term, also in English, pre-wedding, without a church, because my husband doesn't believe anything. So we chose a free wedding. We wanted the free wedding to be at the same date like our official wedding the year before. But last year, when this day was, we got Corona. So we had to cancel it in the last minute. Really, it was, I think, 2 days before. And I was so sad because in our wedding rings, there was written this date was written in there. And now we didn't marry on that date. It's just the day when we had Corona. Yeah. So I called the office and I asked, when is the next free date when we can marry? And it was a month later. So it was the 25th of August last year when we married. And we could switch everything to that date. There was no problem. And it was a really beautiful day. And so, this year we married on the date we missed last year because we couldn't switch everything again. It was paid, the location was paid for that day. So, you can't switch it. So easy. And so this year we had this free wedding. My father did that wedding for us because he is unofficial. So he does official weddings, but he's not allowed to do that for me because I'm his daughter and we're related. So I asked him, hey, can you do this free wedding? Because I know you do this very nice. So all the people who are marrying with you here in the office, they always say, oh yeah, you do this in such a nice way. And I'm crying when you speak and things like that. So I asked him, can you do this for us on our free wedding? And he said yes. And he really made a nice wedding. And we had a lot of guests. We were in a castle. So it's called castle, but it's not really a castle like you imagine a castle. It's and it's really green outside. So it's like just a really big house, a really old big house. And they had a really nice garden. We were marrying in the garden and sitting there, also eating the cake. And then we went up in the castle and there we had dinner and it was perfect. With one little incident because it was so hot. I think it was the hottest day in July. And during the wedding, I was sitting in the sun. I was the only one who was sitting in the sun. All of our guests were sitting in the shadow, and then I got sick after that. And
you got too much sun.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. For the dinner, I was just laying down, and my stomach hurt, and that was not nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my, I can imagine. But besides that, like, you recovered that day, so you were able to celebrate as well?
Yeah, I recovered. I just missed the dinner, which was really sad because we were so much fighting to get Persian, Persian things to eat, Persian dishes. Yeah, thank you. And that was not easy to find here in our location. So we had to bring the dishes from Munich. And I was so looking forward to that. That's really my favorite meals were there. And then I couldn't eat anything.
Oh, but hopefully there was some leftovers so you could try it. Day.
Yeah, I ate
not the same, but at least something. And did you blend cultures as well during the wedding, or was it just like whatever you would say floats your boat, you just went for it?
No, we also wanted to have some cultural traditions from my husband in our wedding. We had 2, I think. The first was when cutting the cake. Before you can do that, the sister of the bride has to do a dance with the knife. And the husband has to give her money until she gives him the knife. So we made that, and then later, after our first dance, my husband also did a dance with his groomsmen, and then all of the guests or all of the family had to give them money because they were dancing. So that was the second thing.
Oh, okay. I guess like giving out money. What symbol is that? Is that like for luck, or is there a specific symbol behind that?
I don't think so. It's just the money, I think. Just
Okay. That's interesting.
yeah, because in Iran, the only thing you give the bride and the groom is gold. Gold is the only thing you can give for a wedding, and it's always the meaning you have. So you have things that are so precious, and money is everything. Like,
Okay. Yeah, that's so interesting. It reminds me a bit of a Turkish wedding as well.
yeah.
And before we get to an end, I mean, you guys, as you mentioned, you know each other very well, and you build a family together. You do have great plans for the future. And summarizing the experience you've made over the past few years, what was your biggest learning, and what advice would you like to share with everyone who's listening and watching?
One thing I learned is that when we have a fight, mostly of the time it's because of a misunderstanding. Also, when the German of my husband is really, really good, sometimes he uses the words in a different way than they are supposed to be, because, it's not his mother language. He doesn't know how to use the words in the right way, and sometimes he's just translating it from his language, like they use this word, and that leads to a misunderstanding. And most of the time, then I'm mad because he did use a word in the wrong way, and I thought he means something else. Yeah. And then we have to talk a lot about that till we come to the conclusion that it was just a misunderstanding and he didn't want to say that. And yeah, that's one of the things I learned when we are fighting. It's mostly because we misunderstand each other. So yeah, talking is the key. Communication is the key for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. I just love that because it's so interesting. Like, no matter to whom I'm talking to, no matter the cultural background, communication is always, 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 always a topic. And I could not agree to that more. It's obviously in any relationship, but especially when you communicate in a language that's not your mother tongue, things can be very interesting sometimes. So thank you so much for that. For everyone who's making maybe similar experience at the moment, who would like to learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way to contact you?
Instagram, I think. Just write me a message. I'm always answering. I answer all the messages, and I'm always there. I'm also working as a coach, as a happiness trainer. So I'm happy to give advices also in that, on that topic. And yeah, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to meet new people and also make friends that have the same background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as always, I'm going to link everything in the side notes and in the video description. So thank you so much for your time, Melanie. It was a pleasure to talk to you and to get to know your story a little bit better, to get to know you a little bit better, to learn about what hurdles you had to take in your relationship, stereotypes, the way you are dealing with that, as mentioned before. I do have a lot of respect for that, the way you also bring attention to this topic, and that's definitely the way to go. So thank you for that, and yeah, have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, and you're welcome. It was really nice to talk to you. I enjoyed it. So yeah, and have a nice weekend too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening and or for watching today's podcast episode. And as always, feel free to use the link, which I'm going to drop in the side notes of the podcast as well as in the description of the video in case you would like to share your story. I'm always looking for new conversation partners, new people I'd like to get to know from all over the world. And on another note, I'm gonna go on a little late summer break. We are going to travel to Turkey in a couple of days, and for that reason I'm not going to be as active as I usually used to be on Instagram, here on YouTube, and the podcast is also going to take a little break. So I'll be back with new stories from the 4th of October on, but nevertheless, I'm still going to share some content on Instagram mainly, so feel free to follow us on Instagram. It's International Love Story. And with this being said, have a lovely morning, have a lovely afternoon, an amazing evening, wherever you're listening from, and take care. Bye!